All right, here we go. So this is really part two of the window of visibility. This is when players between the ages of 15 and 17, but you can see we've expanded the radius, so it says 16 to 19, and it's really between that, 15 to 19, when you're going to see if a club believes a player has a player ready to play pro. Okay, so there's a few categories we're going to go through and how it kind of works. Right, so let's say a player's 16 years old. They're going to fall into 5 categories. They're going to be ready to be signed now. They're going to be ready in 3 months, 6 months, not ready, or they're going to be considered or classified as a late developer. So I'm going to kind of break these down for you, how it works. And obviously, you have the information here too, but I'm going to expand on it a little bit for you. Okay, so during this age range of 15 to 19, you're going to have a 1% player in an academy system. This could be MLS, by the way. It doesn't have to be just European or South American, because MLS clubs now are implementing this process, allowing for compensation for formation and solidarity payments, which means this same type of process can happen in the MLS now, because they have academies. So a player that a club feels is ready, they're going to sign. So they might give them a first couple games, maybe with the U23s, maybe with the under 21s or older age groups, right? But then they're going to start bringing them into first team training sessions. And then that way they're going to get that experience. And then they're going to get probably a game or two. So they're going to have, they're not called pro contracts. It's almost like apprenticeship, and they're going to make a little bit of money. And then when the club is ready to offer that pro contract on that signed notification, they sign the player, they sign their first pro contract, which means this player is consistently ready to play and compete at the professional level at that club, right? So whatever level that club's at, whether it's the Premier League, let's say the Championship, League One, League Two, or in another country, they're ready to play for that club professionally. Now, this model is also used for non-pro clubs because they still play in leagues, but it's obviously not professional. Okay, the next option would be 3 months. So that means that they see the player has tremendous potential. Maybe they haven't grown physically enough. Maybe they're missing something technically or tactically, or there's something that they don't have just yet. But in 3 months, that club is really going to try and push that individual player to become a pro. Because what you need to remember and understand is, just like I talked about in the last video, not every player is going to make it. 1% will. So the club has identified who the players with the potential are to make it. And maybe it's growing mentally, right? Mentally being tougher or something like that. So if it's a 3-month player, that means they're going to work with this player hard for 3 months with the goal at the end of that 3-month period, they'll be ready to sign a pro contract. Okay? Now, it might need to be extended. Maybe it's less. It just depends on how that player develops. Okay? 6 months, same type of goal. The player is a little bit further off from being ready than the 3-month, but the club has identified this player as a target and thinks that they can make them a professional. And I've discussed with you before, it's very difficult to project a player because there's things that can happen. Injuries, lack of interest, negative consequences, and that could be like lack of playing time, and then the player develops bad habits or negatively starts acting out, and mentally that shows they're not strong enough. Okay? But with a 6-month player, you're putting them on like a plan for 6 months to say, hey, in 6 months we're going to try and get you ready to be a pro. And it's up to the player to invest themselves to stay there and reach, or really push above that to reach the next level. Okay? This is where a lot of players go into in the next category. They're not ready. Now, I can tell you, not every club gets this right. Clubs, scouts, agents, they're going to make mistakes. It's part of the human process. But essentially, not ready is going to happen to 99% of players. If you're an academy system, 99% of players are going to get rejected and say you are not ready. So let's give you an example. Let's say we're looking at a U19 club in France. Let's say they have 3 players, a U16, a U17, and a U17, that they identified as almost ready or close enough potential to be a pro. They're going to put them potentially on one of these plans and say, okay, they're ready to be signed. They need 3 months, they need 6 months, maybe it's a year, right? It's a plan. Okay, and that way they have the information to say and give a timeline for this player. Now, like I mentioned a second ago, it's up to the player to make that determination factor if they want to push through it. And it's completely up to the player to do that. Okay? If they want to buy into it and make it. Because the club is identified as the example. 3 players. Maybe only one of them is going to make it. The more that a club can have signed pro contracts, obviously the better. But the club is not going to sign a player they don't feel is ready. What you need to understand about this process is it's an investment from the club. So if you go to a pro club in Europe and you're at Ajax or Barcelona or Real Madrid, they're paying for your player. It's free. If you're the player, it's free for you. The club is making an investment. So they're trying to develop you to become a pro player. However, they don't have to ever offer you a contract. If they don't think you're ready, they're not going to be paying you money. And a lot of money, because a lot of top pros make a lot of money, unless they think you're worth it. If you're better than what they have, or you have the potential to be better than what they have, they'll sign you. But that's how ruthless this business is. Now, I will give you an example here. The next part is late developers. I haven't talked about this yet. A late developer is usually somebody that is small physically, but they grow later. It could be different things. It could be size, speed, strength, balance, coordination. There's a whole bunch of elements that go into this. It could be lung endurance. There's a story about Paul Scholes. When he was 16, 17, 18, he couldn't play more than 20 minutes because he had bad asthma. He had to grow out of it physically. Okay? So usually what happens with this is a player that needs more time to grow, physically, mentally, charismatically. They're missing something. And it doesn't have to just be physical. It can be different things. But they're classified as a late developer, which means they're going to develop a little bit later than the already made athlete. Okay? Usually they're a special talent, but maybe they're lacking confidence. Bernardo Silva is a great example of this. And Bernardo Silva is a very, very small player, not physically big. When he was in Portugal playing as a youth academy player, he struggled to play in the academy system until he got with a specific coach that guided him, mentored him, and saw the potential and helped push him to the next level. And as we know, the rest is history. Okay? Usually if you're a late developer, you need 1 to 3 years to be ready for elite level football. And that doesn't mean they can't make it. It just means they need time. So the club has to invest in the player to give them time to grow physically, to grow mentally, to grow charismatically, whatever the circumstance is. Okay, and that does happen. I just gave you 2 examples, right? And it varies for every single player. It's different. So here are the categories that a club is going to identify a player on to make those scenarios. Okay, hopefully that makes better sense to you. You understand a little bit more, and I'll see you in the next video.